Greetings, fellow tarot travelers, tripping through the tetrahedral triptych of cards I will lay before you. I'm Tarot Torch, and now we will discuss a very important issue that I'm sure everybody has heard over and over again on the news. The country in question is Israel. Israel faces multiple war fronts. To its north, Israel confronts terrorist groups like Hezbollah and the Islamic State. A possible war with Lebanon is at hand, with border skirmishes occurring regularly. To the south, Hamas remains in control of Gaza, and terrorists roam the Sinai Peninsula. As well, Egypt is always a looming threat. To the east, Iran has gained access to more than $100 billion in frozen assets that will help fuel its support for terrorism and regional destabilization. Hezbollah and Russia have also joined Syria and pose a new united threat to Israel. Although Jordan is stable for now, Jordan houses the largest Palestinian population outside of Palestine and supports the overburdening Palestinian population's right of return. To the west, Gaza is a constant threat and has sent rockets, pyrotechnic devices, and suicide bombers to Israel regularly. And let us not forget, Turkey occupies half of Crete, a perfect place for a naval invasion. Within Israel is the constant threat of being subsumed by any one of the religious and ethnic cultures that want hegemony over the region. This includes the multiple Christian religions, including Catholicism, but as well Islam and others. Internationally, Israel is threatened by the preponderance of nations that oppose it, whose opinions are represented in the United Nations, with sanctions issued legally, militarily, and economically, only to be overturned in the Security Council. On December 26, 2018, Israel struck Syria, where Hezbollah was said to have been retrofitting rockets into precision-guided missiles. Now, I want you to know that rockets have no guidance systems. Only missiles do. Current Palestinians only have been employing rockets to strike at Israel. The building that was bombed by a missile strike in Syria is in the western Damascus at a Syrian military base belonging to the Syrian Army's 4th Division. Now, I want to have that clearly stated, so let me say it again. The building that was bombed by a missile strike in Syria is in the western Damascus region at a Syrian military base belonging to the Syrian Army's 4th Division. Now think about that for a second. With one bombing, Israel managed to attack both Hezbollah and Syria and ignite war treaties between Russia and Syria. And these are all active wars. Russian Defense Minister spokesman Major General Igor Konashenkov said the Syrian Air Defense Forces shot down 14 of the 16 precision-guided bombs dropped by the Israeli jets, while the remaining 2 hit a Syrian military depot 7 kilometers, about 4 miles west of Damascus, injuring 3 Syrian soldiers. Israel claims there were secondary explosions from the precision hit because the building was filled with rockets and missiles. Israel says its forces have struck almost all of Iran's infrastructure in Syria in response to an Iranian rocket attack on the occupied Golan Heights. Well, what is in the future for Israel? Will Israel be a country in years to come, or will there be another diaspora, or perhaps a genocide through military invasion? Will Israel become more like Tibet, just an idea? Is this the future for all ethno-nationalist concerns, reduced to an idea? Will Israel conquer its enemies and rule the Middle East and or perhaps the world? Will Israel stay in its current holding pattern of suffering endless terrorist strikes with continuous overt military responses for many years to come? Will peace ever come to this region? Well, I must say these are some very, very big questions that have not been answered for 50 years. And today I'm going to use the CBD Tarot de Marseille that was created by Dr. Yoav Ben Dov. Now, Dr. Ben Dov is, or was, actually he's passed on, but he was an Israeli. And you can see here the Hebraic writing. And that is because he was a professor of physics at Tel Aviv University who gave up his illustrious career to create this deck, write books, and do tarot counseling. And he was a brilliant, brilliant man who offered a lot to the tarot community. And this is perhaps one of the very best Tarot de Marseille decks on the market today. I highly recommend anyone who does Tarot de Marseille to buy this deck and acquire it because it is of such a high quality in cards and printing, and it is an exact rendering of the original Convert deck. The colorations and everything is absolutely perfect. But today we want to know from the cards, and with Dr. Ben Dov's help, what are the prospects for Israel now that it has waged war against Hezbollah, Syria, and indirectly with Russia? And China, of course, as we've shown in the show entitled Syria, is also present in the region. There are many, many countries in the region now, fully armed and ready to attack Israel. What are Israel's prospects? Whoops, the cards aren't upside down, I am. I only read right side upside. So here's our first card, the Page of Cups. In French, he's known as Le Valet de Coupe. And the Page of Cups is a very interesting card. In this instance, it could represent emissaries, peacekeeping teams, discussions, and group meetings. The next card is the Eight of Cups. And the Eight of Cups is the card that concerns itself with involvement. You can see the two cups that are in the center, as though the society is here to see how these two sides are getting along. This oftentimes is a card indicating marriage counseling, but in our context, to say peace treaties, peace deals, consultations with foreign governments, and setting things right through an involved process like the Camp David Accords seems to be in order at this time. And the final card is the Queen of Coins. And the Queen of Coins is a very interesting card. Being royalty, of course, she's in the court, and so her power is greater than a lesser card, which would be from 1 to 10. And the coins represent materiality. So if the coins were a kingdom, the kingdom of coins, the Queen of Coins would be the actual territorial boundaries of her kingdom. And the Queen of Coins would also be the wealth of a kingdom, the agriculture, the industry, and all the things that create the economy. So here we see a card that shows an emissary, a card that shows a peace proposal and plan that has to do with intervention in the region in order to create stability. And we see the economic incentive of wanting to keep territorial regions intact and to keep industries from being bombed. But if you notice, the Queen is looking towards the peace process, but the emissary is looking away from the peace process. This means that there is something shady going on, that there are sides that are talking about peace, but they don't mean it. If this card meant peace, he would be looking into a peace process. Now, cups can also represent religion. This could be the religion of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or any other religion, or spiritual pursuit. So in this case, we could say that one of the religions, because it is a singular being, might be less than honorable in its promises and in the fulfillment of its obligations, and it is using the treaty process to simply be abusive in this circumstance. However, no matter how religiously or ethnically each of the different components of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are, the fact remains money seems to be the one thread staring directly at the involvement card that seems to be the one that will make the peace. It won't be the promises of Islam. It won't be the promises of Christianity. It won't be a speech by the Pope, and it won't be Israel coming together for a cause. What will create peace is money. How are we going to keep our industries floating under a rocket attack? How can we export our products to foreign countries? Wouldn't economic development be better than destruction? Now, Israel has offered economic development to Palestine, and they've rejected it in the past. But, times change, things change. Granted, Hamas may not be so easy for Israel to deal with, but economics seems to be the key. Egypt does not want to lose trading partners. Saudi Arabia does not want to lose trading partners. Turkey does not want to lose trading partners. War may make money for those companies that produce guns, bullets, and bombs, but it destroys farmland, and it destroys universities, and it destroys factories, and it destroys many things. And of course, money poured into the situation will cause rebuilding and a new economic involvement, once again, the involvement card in the region. But money is hard to come by. IMF loans are hard to pay off. And it's much better to keep a society functioning than to bomb and rebuild. Certainly the prospects for Syria look bleak at this time. And so in terms of an Israeli deal, it seems that the moneyed interests are more interested in involving themselves in a peace process than the religious interests. Everybody's too busy in the religious world looking for their Messiah and looking for their Antichrist. They're so busy and so sure that destruction must come. But I have to ask, is that really the message of God? Is that really the message of peace through Islam and Christianity? Is that really the whole purpose of Judaism? To cause massive destruction throughout our planet? Is that really what a religion is for? Because if that's a religion, I question the godfulness. God is about creating life and preserving life, not causing torture and mayhem. And so, with the Valet des Coupes, the Page of Cups, who represents the religious enclave in this case, walking away from the peace discussions and walking away from the principles of involvement in a process that would bring peace. Perhaps we should just let them walk. Perhaps the world is tired of religions that are not serving God's interests. And maybe it's the economic interests in this case that are more godful because they want to preserve society, because that's where they make their money. And therefore they don't want the schools and hospitals bombed. It's bad for business. Sure, rebuilding creates business, but rebuilding only serves the building interests. Once a hospital or a school is in place, oh my gosh, there are so many contingent businesses associated with it. A healthy operating school sells notebooks, pencils, lunch bags, you name it, and each one of these items is associated with hundreds of factories, thousands of workers. A hospital with all of its medicines, hundreds, thousands of people involved in R&D, manufacturing, and distribution. You bomb a hospital, you bomb a school, and you only get a few construction companies in there to rebuild. It doesn't help the society in general. So what we need to do is not focus in on the religions and their plight of trying to end the world to prove some kind of divinity they themselves question its existence of, because they themselves want to see everything end to see if their God is true. Let's let them walk away from the peace process. Instead, let's get practical. Territorial boundaries, preservation of businesses, preservation of agriculture, this is the key to the peace process. It's a moneyed process. If we can develop the region and make the Palestinians rich, if we can make the whole region rich, these people shouldn't spend their time with guns trying to end the world to prove some kind of moot religious point. We should be involved in the involvement of human life, human happiness, human fulfillment through economic development.